Education worldwide has recently moved entirely online. And as we all fight our respective battles with internet connections, lesson timing, demotivated students, frustrated parents, our own kids in the room, our spouses in the kitchen working remotely, we wonder whether we're online too much, too often, not often enough. Do we send emails, set up chat rooms, use Zoom or not, assess or not? All of this is very new to most teachers worldwide. But I've been very lucky. For me, technology came into my classroom back in 1984 at Jakarta International School. Apple IIe was the computer with a floppy disk for saving documents that was 54K. Why was I lucky? As my school progressed from Apple IIe to Macintosh computers to Dell and Windows and back to Apple laptops, I kept learning and relearning. Constant change from one type of technology to another, from one platform to another, from one operating system to another. Although sometimes it was pretty frustrating, what fascinated me the most is the constant surprise at new possibilities that tech innovation offered for learning in a different way than we learned before. The speed of this tech innovation over the last 20 years meant for me only one thing: collaboration and blended learning. Let's learn together, I said to my students, and celebrated each time they taught me something new. They celebrated every time I added what I learned from them in the next project or assignment. We certainly did a lot of celebrating, and we learned a lot together. So today, I'd like to tell you about the things that I learned over these last 20 years of working in a blended learning environment. What teaching strategy have you been using in your face-to-face classroom in terms of methodology and learning outcomes? If you've been trying to move your traditional lecture type class to an online environment with very little change in what you do, you may realize that it's not working. In most cases, in order to keep the students engaged online for an hour or so, it's essential to break it up into smaller learning sections, change up the methods of delivery, add variety that engages the students, adjust the learning outcomes for each lesson. That face-to-face ambiance that you had in your teacher-centered classroom, that's really hard to replicate online. Your students matter, and so do their needs. This is where you, the teacher, have a decisive voice. You are the one who knows your students best. What is it that makes them excited? Which one of the students is the leader? Which one is more of a follower? Who is the trusted one to help on the sidelines? And who's the tech savvy who will help you figure out the inevitable glitches? If you know your class well, then you have already established an amicable rapport with them, and you will be able to even anticipate the pranks. Very harmless, I hope. But what's most important is that you will choose methods that work best for your students. And that's going to be a customized blend of some online synchronous meetings and some offline project type assignments that they can complete on their own with your office hour guidance available through chats and emails or calls. Engagement of the students is crucial, and a balance of learning content and skills is, of course, essential. What you deliver and how you deliver matters tremendously in online learning, as this will determine the student buy-in and engagement and practice for the mastery of both content and skills that you want. The resources available to you, of course, that matters. Resources, let me tell you a story. When I was a baby in the 1960s in communist Poland, our family moved to an apartment where I grew up. And immediately after moving in, my parents applied for a landline phone. That's what you had to do to apply for permission to own one. The wait time was very long. And in fact, we waited 11 years to get that phone installed. But when in 1970 my father moved to New York City to teach at the UN school, he was visited by the phone company 20 minutes after the landlord walked out with the signed lease. This illustrates a difference in resource availability. This was 50 years ago, but access to hardware is still a problem in many parts of the world. Some have it, some have not. So NGOs and governments really need to work together really fast to permit all children that equal access to education that has all moved online right now. Your time matters. Yes, vast resources are available on the internet, even for free, but it takes a vast amount of time to find the right ones. And if you're picky like me, it will take you hours to find the right information, the right resources, and plan out that one online lesson. Availability of tech gadgets, that's one problem, but knowing which button to press and how to use a program or an app or a tool, that's another. Again, hours and hours of learning and practicing and relearning are needed to reach a decent level of digital proficiency. This decent level was a luxury a month or two ago when teachers worldwide found themselves in empty classrooms, facing a computer screen and a blank virtual whiteboard, if they managed to find it on Zoom. So when we all return to our respective schools and classrooms, one thing will definitely be different. The use of technology that the students are experiencing right now can't be ignored. Even though the novelty of online learning may have worn off and enthusiasm may have waned, the way we have been teaching over the past months, entirely online, will surely impact how we will be teaching in the future. And I believe that the blended learning approach that I've experienced myself over the past 20 years, that's going to be the most effective. When internet arrived and web pages multiplied, my first reaction was, wow, this is like a giant bottomless book. And I added online research as one of the ways to find information when students were completing assignments. Before the internet era, they researched in library books. They copied vast chunks of text, first handwritten and then typed up on computers and printed. And to stop them from simply regurgitating this information and encourage authentic writing and speaking in English, I devised a jigsaw of activities. First, research the information, knock yourself out copying it if you want to, but then create an authentic piece based on the information, and then based on 5 authentic pieces written by 5 students, write the report. End of plagiarism, enter authentic language production. In the internet era, they research online. They copy vast chunks of text neatly typed. They calmly paste them into their own docs. And then, well, you know the rest. The buck stops right there. It's a classic inquiry jigsaw that ensures the processing of whatever information you want the students to learn in an authentic creative piece. Engaging, fun, there's choice. You always have to give them a choice. And voice. I applied this inquiry jigsaw to design blended learning experiences for 9th graders reading Romeo and Juliet and 10th graders reading Macbeth, for novels like To Kill a Mockingbird or Sold by Patricia McCormick, And for IB English B learners, writing up thematic reports based on short stories and blogs and vlogs and news reports they found online. Students wrote shared stories on Google Docs, created inquiry Google slides together, learned information from each other's slides, then presented their own interpretation of what they learned in a Flipgrid video, which they then self-evaluated, peer-evaluated, and reflected upon to plan the improvement for the revised version. Some of this happened in the classroom, face-to-face. Some at home as extension work. Most of the work was done and shared online. And even though I engaged face-to-face with the students throughout their classroom learning experience, my role was to facilitate the learning, to troubleshoot, to explain a query here or there, now or then, to teach the language of agreement and disagreement, to help with negotiations in collaboration, and to connect the learning to their own lives with an anecdote from mine. The content, the English language, and the skill learning, that was happening almost by itself. And often the bell ending the class was simply ignored by the students. So moving this type of learning to an online environment, that's feasible. Like I said before, with a customized blend of some online synchronous meetings and mainly for content explanation, basic instructions, and then some offline project type assignments that students can complete on their own with your office hour guidance available through chats or emails or calls or whatever you want to establish. That frees you up to spend your time devising such blended learning activities. And if one teacher collaborates with 3 other teachers in their department or school or district, and online, we can collaborate with way more teachers than we know personally. Then they can divvy up the workload and create a template that they agree on and fill it with engaging activities and resources that are curated online, and attach a detailed step-by-step instruction list to follow, and then exchange the 4 plans. Then all it takes is to set up the office hours and be there for the students. Remember, the students matter. And you're encouraging and championing and helping to resolve the issues. Such a professional learning community, if it doesn't already exist at your school, it can be set up online beyond classroom walls by like-minded teachers. Having worked in groups of 2 to 16, most effective I've found is a group of 5 to 6 teachers at the most. I know online forums on Facebook, Twitter, or LinkedIn are teeming with discussion threads and lots of comments and sometimes superb inspiration. But it also takes a lot of combing for ideas, and it's really got to be a fine-tooth comb to find those gems. And it may take hours and often doesn't yield the results that you need. So let's recap. From no phones to landlines, through a series of now obsolete gadgets, we've arrived at a connectivity we only dreamed of 50 years ago, and an opportunity to change the way we learn and we teach. An opportunity that entered some classrooms as early as 20 years ago. Some lucky teachers who did have access to resources and technology and had the creativity to design challenging, complex learning experiences have found the transition into online learning less daunting than others. Most teachers have just taken a crash course, and some crashed, and some struggled but survived. And some embraced this forced change and will return to their face-to-face classrooms enlightened and ready to take on new challenges. And maybe not ban those phones anymore. Technology will continue to evolve. There's no doubt about that. Future pandemics, hopefully few and far apart, will keep changing the way we teach and we learn and we live. Generation Z and Generation Alpha, that's the kids born since 2009 and likely to see the 22nd century. Think about that. They don't know a world without phones, internet, smartphones. Not only do they carry a phone wherever they go, they carry chat rooms, whole encyclopedias and dictionaries, cameras, libraries, game rooms, film collections, world maps, and photo albums. What are they going to be carrying in their pocket over the next 10 years? So let's connect, let's talk about how to teach this and the next generation, how to use those resources that they carry in their pockets to improve the world that they live in. And let's equip them with the skills to face the unknown world that awaits them. And I believe blended learning is the way to go. Thank you.